Jack is on the horn right now. You can find Jack Kelly's words for the Detroit Bad Boys covering the Detroit Pistons. Find him on Twitter at Jack_Kelly_313. Jack, good morning to you, my friend. How are you? How's life? How are things, partner?
I'm good, man. I'm good. It's 10:30 p.m. here, but yeah, I'm happy to join you guys, and we're finally here.
Yeah, it's late night for you right now. Oh, my goodness. 10:30 p.m. calling us all the way from Melbourne, Australia.
It's Tuesday night here. We're 16 hours ahead.
Wow. Man, so what time? So the lottery, so let's do some quick math here then. The lottery is 8 p.m. Eastern time. What day, what time is that going to be for you?
It's 10 a.m. Wednesday morning.
Oh man, well, hey, you know what? That's exciting, right? So we're just starting our day. You're closing down your day, and we appreciate you taking some time to join us here to talk about this draft lottery. And look, I got to be honest with you, Jack. If there is any level of like excitement that I have, it's met equally with this overwhelming fear of being disappointed tonight, because I really feel like if you win the lottery and get Wemby, your franchise has changed. I don't really know if anybody else is doing that in this draft. Is there another option that you might sort of kind of like in this draft class?
There's plenty of guys I like I think for me, the top four of obviously Victor Wembanyama, but then the tier below, Scoot Henderson, a guard from the G League who's been compared to Br0's. Then there's Brandon Miller, who's sort of the small forward, the shooting small forward the Pistons have been looking for. And then the fourth guy who I'm really high on is Amen Thompson out of the Overtime Elite.
Really?
So
okay.
Victor Wembanyama is the generational prospect, but there's another couple of guys who could really help this team win next season.
Are you nervous about tonight's? How do you approach tonight's lottery going into this thing, knowing that, hey, if our name gets called early, we're going to lose out on the Wemby sweepstakes?
Man, it'll be tough. But there's plenty. This draft has a lot of talent. It's been hyped as one of the better drafts in the past few years, and I think, yes, it'll be disappointing if the Pistons don't get the first overall pick. But as I just mentioned, there's another 3 to 4 guys who really could be all-star type players.
Jack, you went through with one of the first-round picks last year, a guy by the name of Jalen Duren. And you went back and kind of tracked through, his assists to break down his ability to move the basketball. Now, the first time we saw him in the Summer League in Las Vegas, he ran a pick and roll with Jaden Ivey. Ivey threw it up. Jalen Duren caught it at its pinnacle and threw it down for just a monster alley-oops. And it was like, you know what, the Pistons haven't had, outside of Marvin Bagley joining the team the year prior, they really just haven't had an athletic big man that can run to the rim. We haven't had that. We've had a bunch of undersized guys. We saw Cade and Marvin Bagley in their short time together before Cade's injury. That pick and roll worked really nicely. I was very intrigued by Jalen Duren, and I think that he is, I don't know, I would put him in the starting lineup for the very first game of the upcoming season. When you watch Jalen Duren, what do you see from him that intrigues you?
Well, as you mentioned, the passing for me is sort of the intriguing part of his offensive game. When you first look at Jalen Duren, the easy comparison is to sort of go Dwight Howard. He's got the broad shoulders, 6'11", can jump out of the gym. But the thing with Jalen that sort of separates him from those sort of rim-running bigs you sort of mentioned is the passing ability. His ability not just to make, the simple passes, to execute dribble handoffs, to sort of the passing and the pick and roll to corner shooters. There's something about that really separates him and really can't, like when we talk about Victor Wembanyama, the idea of pairing Jalen Duren with another 7'4" big or a big like Victor Wembanyama is his passing ability and the ability to sort of operate on offense without clogging up and slowing things down. So from an offensive point of view, the passing is really what opens things up for Jalen Duren.
You know, Jack, I'm kind of I want to see this team at full strength. I want to envision Victor Wembanyama on this team for a moment, and I think about, okay, if Cade's running the point and Jaden Ivey's the two, and Wembanyama is your 3 or 4, play him wherever, just out there on the wing, and Jalen Duren's your big man down in the middle. I really like Bojan Bogdanovic. I think he's the only professional shooter that this team actually has. I don't want to trade him, and I know that a lot of people have been talking about like this offseason what you could get for him. I think that if this team can get Wembanyama, our expectation should be a little bit like overwhelmingly high. Like I think that they have enough, gas in the tank here to really push some of these other teams. Would you trade Bojan Bogdanovic and try to get something in return, or do you feel that there's value in him being a veteran, also being another guy from overseas that could kind of help groom a guy like Wemby if the Pistons are lucky to be able to get him? Would you keep Bogey, or would you try to trade him?
I would keep Bogey. For me, his ability to shoot the ball, we just haven't seen something like that, at least in my time following the Pistons since 2012. This team feels like they've been devoid of shooting, and I think what we saw last season, I think it was easy for fans to forget how Bojan's played alongside Cade and Jaden Ivey because we only got 12 or so games. So Bojan was sort of miscast into a more of a ball handling role as once Cade Cunningham went down, and that's not really his game. He's more an off-ball scorer, someone who can sort of create off of Jaden and Cade. And I think if this team does get lucky enough to draft Victor Wembanyama or Scoot Henderson, if this team's ready to start winning more, pushing for 30 wins or more, they really do need to keep the veterans like Bojan Bogdanovic and Alec Burks on the roster, because ultimately this team, if the main ball handlers on this team are still going to be in their first, second and third seasons, and when you have young ball handlers on the team, that's turnovers, and I think they need these veterans to help guide them, to teach them to win. It's sort of boring stuff to talk about, but it does matter when you're trying to climb up the standings.
No, it absolutely does. I mean, you have to have some sort of veteran presence there, right? We can't just roll the ball out with a bunch of guys under the age of 23 and expect them to win basketball games at the professional level. Like, it takes some time to learn how to win at this level. I think it's very important, and that's why I don't want to let Bogey go. I want to keep him for as long as we possibly can, because at the end of the day, also, like you said, we don't really have any shooters. We haven't really had any shooters recently on this team, not as proficient as he is. And if you have one guy that could spot up and knock it down, like that would be, especially with everything else they're going to have going on, if they get Wemby, that's going to be just clutch. Who would be your choice to be the new Pistons head coach? Who do you like the most here?
Oh, man. I think we've had reports that Monty Williams will be interviewed, or the Pistons will show interest in interviewing him. For me, I was sort of leaning towards maybe a first-time head coach like a Charles Lee, but that was prior to the Monty Williams news. So with that in mind, I think if the team was able to secure Monty Williams, I think he would do wonders for this team. I really do. Yes, he's been in the league for a while, but the way he was able to sort of take that Phoenix Suns team from somewhere that was culturally sort of struggling, and Devin Booker was often seen as a big stats, sort of bad team guy, to take that team to the bubble where they went 8-0 and then the finals the following season. I think he's sort of the perfect guy to help this team transition from the bottom of the standings into that play-in late playoff race where, these young guys, he can be the guy to teach them and guide them. And I do think now with him available, I think the Pistons would be stupid not to go hard for Monty Williams. And there is a tie there with Troy Weaver and Monty Williams. I believe they're both from the DMV area, and also Williams coached at OKC in 2016. So there is ties there as well.
What would you do with a couple of other selections under Troy Weaver? That first draft, Killian Hayes selecting him at 7. I could complain about. I have been complaining about that since that pick happened. But then you had Sadiq Bey and Isaiah Stewart, who were both all rookie selections. Sadiq Bey obviously moved last season. The return, James Wiseman. Okay, we'll see what we have there. But with Isaiah Stewart, who didn't play a lot at the end of the year with injury, Killian Hayes, who saw more time, I just don't think that he's a starting point guard in this league. I think that he could be a very serviceable backup, and that might be a really good role for him here in Detroit. I think that our expectation for him was way too high. You know, we didn't know anything about him. We didn't know where he came from, what league he played in. We didn't know any of that. We just got this French guy named Killian Hayes, and we expected him to be really, really good. We have to go back. We draft another point guard in Cade Cunningham. I think Killian Hayes, 6th, 7th man, I think it's a really good fit for him. What do they do, in your opinion, what do the Pistons do with Hayes and Stewart, who are going to be eligible for extensions this summer?
It's a great question. I think Stewart, if I was the GM, I probably wouldn't extend either until next off-season. I think we've seen from each of them, I mean, Stewart showed flashes of a three-point shot before he had a shoulder injury, and then the percentage sort of dropped off. He showed some stuff sort of off the dribble, playing alongside Jalen Duren. But I still think a lot of Stewart's, I guess, next contract value is going to come from what can he consistently do on the offensive end. I think defensively we know what we have, or Detroit know what they have. But I think he still needs to show for a full season what, going into year 4, you start to really see the type of player you have and what they're going to be in their prime. And I think with Stewart, you wait till next off-season. And the same goes for Killian Hayes. I mean, he had the months in December and January where he was hitting game winners over the Dallas Mavericks, and it felt like things were coming together for Killian. Toward the end of the season, the shooting fell off, and it sort of we're left in that area of where, like, what is Killian Hayes? I agree with you. I think ultimately he's a backup point guard, but I still think you wait until the following summer to consider extending these guys.
Western Conference Finals begins tonight. Lakers and Nuggets. That'll be after the draft lottery at 8:30 on ESPN. And then tomorrow night we'll get the Eastern Conference game number 1 between the Miami Heat and the Boston Celtics. Who do you like in each series? Like, who do you want to win, and then who do you think will win?
Oh man, I think I want to see LeBron in the finals. I know that might upset the Detroit listeners, but yeah, I've grown up watching LeBron, and I would love to see him get another chance at winning a title. But in saying that, that's what I'd like to happen. I think the Nuggets are primed for a finals berth. I think Nikola Jokic has really stepped up this postseason, quieted a lot of doubters. And I think that Nuggets team now is fully healthy, are really ready to make a finals run. So I'll probably pick the Nuggets in 6. And then in the Eastern Conference, I think it's the Celtics here. I think they got through Miami last year. I think Miami have surprised everyone to get to this point. But I think the Celtics, I think they're primed as well to make the finals. And I think that'll be another 6 or 7 game series.
Oh, little Celtics Nuggets. I would be good with that. I hope that Jokic can get it done. All the chatter about the MVP this year, and here's Jokic still standing in Embiid, 1, 2, 3, Cancun, right? Ready for vacation. His name is Jack Kelly. You can find him on Twitter at Jack_Kelly_313, covering the Detroit Pistons for the Bad Boys, Detroit Bad Boys on Twitter. Jack, my friend, it was very nice to have you on the program. Have a wonderful evening, and wake up with us for the lottery later on tonight.
No, thanks so much for that. Appreciate it. And yeah, let's hope the ping pong balls fall the Pistons' way.
Oh, we'll cross our fingers and pray. That's about all we can do at this point. Thanks again, Jack. There he goes. Jack Kelly covering the Detroit Pistons, as I mentioned. His breakdown of the Jalen Duren playmaking it's up there. DetroitBadBoys.com. Give it a quick little look. Click the link, go through it, and I think that you will be pleasantly surprised with what you see. I mean, you could see it during games, but to have it all compiled in like one space so you can watch and kind of see, he's a very good player. And there were some people that thought that, maybe he would start off in the G League. Like, no. First game, Summer League. Like, the athleticism is through the roof. And all I can think about is Bogey and Wemby on the wings, Cade and Ivy up top, Duren in the middle. Then you have a legitimate starting five there, a legitimate starting five. Like, that's the real deal.